Greetings and salutations. You are listening to the Into the North podcast, where we take a look at the competitive side of the Commander format, also known as CEDH. I am one of your hosts, Dave, aka A-Turnip, and today I am joined by my co-host, Zach, aka ZWells3.
Howdy, folks.
And unfortunately, Matt and Morgan are gone this week. However, in their place, we have two very special guests, friends of the show, Lyndon, aka Noobsaurus, and Reed, aka Sick Robot. How are you doing, guys?
Pretty good. Thanks for having us on.
Glad to be here.
Really happy to have you guys.
Yeah, really happy to have you guys.
Whoa, what a hilarious goof. Goofs and gaffs all over the place. Yeah, so you guys, listeners, get the joke. We've got Dave and Zach on the show, subbing in for Matt and Morgan. And we've mentioned Dave. I think we've also mentioned Zach before. So these guys are both from the Kingston metagame, Kingston meta. Sorry, yeah. So they played along with play along with me right now, and then they played along with Matt and Morgan as well in the past when Matt and Morgan were still bumming around Kingston. So we played with these guys for a long time, and we thought, let's get them on the podcast.
Yep. And here we are.
Yeah, they've got. So today's episode is going to be on hot takes. So this is an episode I'm very much looking forward to because Dave and Zach have some particularly hot and interesting takes on CDH generally. So
basically, because Morgan and Matt aren't here to contest Lyndon's hot takes.
Oh no, I'll contest Lyndon's hot takes. I have no issue with that.
If I was to set up this episode so that everyone would be in agreement with all my hot takes, it would literally just be me monologuing. So
you can look forward to that coming next episode. So get excited.
Yeah, there's no safe space for my hot takes.
Lyndon puts out hits on the rest of us and then just continues the show on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's jump into housekeeping. And in housekeeping, we only have one element because actually we're a bit behind on episode recording. So we fell behind by one episode in October. So we're trying to catch up, and that means doing recordings very close back to back. So there's actually not a whole lot for new developments or housekeeping this week, but we'll in our housekeeping we do have one notable event, and that is we've got a new patron. Hooray! Yay. Everyone clap.
God, this affects me a lot. This is good.
God, Zach. Okay, so our new patron is Reed. Why don't you try to pronounce this one?
Yeah. All right. It's Dreven45ty. Thank you.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It's Dreven Nasty because the 4 is an A and the
oh my God,
it's Dr. 3V Nasty.
No, it's Drev Nasty.
Drev Nasty.
It's Drev Nasty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drev
Okay.
Nasty.
There you go.
All right, Drev Nasty.
Wow. It might be Drew Nasty.
Drew Nasty.
Oh, because you put the two V's together and it makes a W. Yeah. I think actually it might be Drew Nasty.
Drew Nasty.
Drew Nasty.
We'll settle with that.
All right, this is enough shout out to Drew Nasty.
It's been so long since I've been on doing leet speak kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks a lot, Drew Nasty. If that's not at all how it's supposed to be, it's not.
No, I definitely got it.
Yeah. Okay.
You rock.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. We're just begging for that cease and desist.
It's like when you start ironically using bad terms that you would never use, and then you just use it enough that it becomes part of your vocab.
Hashtag YOLO. Dab on them haters.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to new developments. So as I said, since we're recording this episode so soon after our last episode, there isn't really much to speak of in regards to new developments. So we decided, since we have Dave and Zach on the show and they're from the Kingston meta,
we're going to talk about things that all aren't relevant to EDH.
Yeah, we're just gonna talk about new developments in our local meta. So,
and in life in general.
Yeah, Reed, you can go first. He's not in the Kingston meta, so let's just get this out of the way.
I got a sick draft deck yesterday. It was great. I was supposed to play in a Team Trios event, and then we got there late and didn't enter. But thankfully, that happened because the prize payout was really bad, so we went and got KBBQ instead. Good time. And then went to go draft ELD, and I put together the sickest ELD draft deck of all time. I had 4 rares in my main deck, 1 rare in the board. Just stomp the competition. Let's go.
Nice. Okay, but now on to the important news. First up is Dave has started building GOAT decks for GOAT format, which for those of you who may not know, because this is a Magic the Gathering podcast, that's a Yu-Gi-Oh thing. There's a very specific old format for people who can't get with it with the new times because they're cranky.
GOAT format is by far the best format in Yu-Gi-Oh. So.
Yeah. All right,
so
Dave, you have 15 seconds to talk about this.
I have 15 seconds? All right, very quickly. Basically, the cards are dirt cheap to order, so we're basically treating it like a board game where we'll have enough cards to build 2 of any decks in the format, and then just play them.
Like people who have Pauper Battle.
Yeah, and just play them against each other. Yep.
Turnoff, which deck do you play?
Well, usually I would play GOAT Control or the GOAT Control Mirrors.
Boring.
From time to time,
I would play Chaos.
From time to time, we'll also play just like random Dimension Fusion decks, and also like Warriors and stuff like that.
Yeah, Warriors is the best deck in that format.
Warriors is
okay. Great.
It's okay.
Warriors is great.
Okay. Next bullet point on this in this new development segment is the Pioneer format, which is not new anymore. It's kind of old news, but. We've been, I guess, Dave, you've been
we'll just
cutting
give
up proxies
a quick
and
shout
decks.
out. I think it's a great alternative to Modern, and especially to the shit show that's Standard right now. And even though some of the cards have gone up in price already, it's still a reasonable time to buy into it. There's a lot of cheap decks out there that you can play.
Okay. Also, I'm gonna give. I know Dave and the others didn't want me to say this, but I love you listeners, so I'm going to give you guys some solid piece of MTG finance advice.
This is not real finance advice for legal reasons. This is Lyndon's sole opinion, and it's not representative of the Into the North brand.
You can take this to the bank and cash it, okay? So in Pioneer, Soul Flare is going to be the hot meta deck after all bans, because nothing in Soul Flare is going to get touched. If you look at the lists, they're all like mediocre garbage cards. I can't see anything getting banned. So hop on the Soul Flare bandwagon, or at least the pre-bandwagon, because when all the good decks get banned, all that's going to be left is like fair decks, and Soul Flare does things pretty well against fair decks.
I mean, the fact that all the cards in it are bad, so they're not going to get banned, and they're really cheap, is probably pretty indicative of the power level of the deck, right?
The deck has gotten 5-0s on MTGO. It's gotten 5-0s.
Cards that are cheap and nobody's buying them.
Yeah, well, they're cheap and nobody's buying them for a good reason.
Also,
it's gotten 5-0s on MTGO, and those are all bad deck lists.
From a legal perspective,
all I'm saying is pick up Chromanticores. Those cards are $1. They're a mythic. They've only been printed once. And dude, if Soul Flare becomes at all like a mediumly popular deck, $5 at least.
Okay, Lyndon, before we continue, I think you legally need to tell us how many of these cards that you own.
I own 0 Chromanticores.
You do need to tell us about any given interest.
I actually own 0 Chromanticores, but I do own something like 250 precursor golems. Okay. So you could take my spec advice with a grain of salt on that one,
Yeah.
So that's the Pioneer format. Unless anyone has anything else to add on that.
No,
we're good.
No, Deathrite Shaman's not good at it. How about that? That's my hot take.
Yeah, crazy. Wow. Yeah. Okay, and the final new development, Zach. You get this
I'm
one?
so excited. So obviously we're going to be talking a bit about the Kingston community, QMTG, Queen's Magic the Gathering. We work pretty hard every year to get new folks into our club, introduce them to the ways of EDH, and we're super excited to have player Muggernaut, who's decided to up his game from standard classic EDH to a more competitive format. So he's chosen to go with, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the list in front of me, but I believe it's Kefnet mono blue, foray into some level of competitiveness.
Yeah, with like Mystic Sanctuary plus like turn spells stuff.
Yes. So
I thought Reed would like that.
So there's not a ton to go on here, but we all kind of had bets internally on how long it would take to convert this lovely guy from EDH to the one true format of CEDH, and I think it took about 3 months, and we're getting there. So just exciting to have add one more person to the kind of the hub of CEDH. I think worldwide. I don't think that'd be
Kingston Kingston, Ontario is considered by many to be the largest CEDH playgroup in the world.
Considered by people in Kingston
the
the
largest and most consistent paper CEDH community.
I mean, it's just a quantitative analysis.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Where?
I've never seen anybody challenge that.
Yeah, because you said it once on a podcast that at the time of this recording hasn't been released yet.
You know what? I'm going to take that and I'm just going to ignore that.
That sounds like someone who's jealous they don't have such a huge paper meta.
Dude, we got a great one. I do got to say, though, Boston, pretty consistent, very large.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of, you're going to say the Toronto metagame, right? I just want you to know that the Toronto metagame is like 50%.
I said specifically the Boston. You're making an
I thought you
argument against something that I didn't
we
say.
have a big one in Toronto. I thought that's what you were implying.
What? No, I specifically said I got to give a shout out to the Boston.
Okay, sorry. I thought before that you were
is
talking
huge.
about Toronto. Yeah, the Toronto metagame is half Kingston players, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Or is the Kingston meta entirely comprised of rogue Toronto players?
You know what? I'm not going to answer that question.
The Kingston meta consists of players who have ascended beyond the Toronto metagame.
I see.
All right.
Yeah, the Toronto metagame's full of degenerate Hulk players.
Enough.
Well, okay.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's not a bad thing.
Well, that statement could be considered a hot take, and so I'm going to use that as a segue into our main topic. Dude, you only get this good after a full year of podcasting experience.
That's insane.
Yeah. So
A full, however many, 17 episodes.
plus
So many
special
episodes.
episodes. This
Plus
is
special
episode
episodes.
17 plus 2 special episodes.
You guys are up
So,
for
you know what?
syndication at this point, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Okay, but yes. Enough of this banter.
God damn
Let's
it.
get into the main topic.
He still got there. My plan was to
Hot
ruin the
takes.
segue.
Hot takes. Okay. So we've all got a lot of things to say about CEDH generally, Discord drama. No,
Don't go there.
We're going to be leaving
We
out
have very
Discord
little to say
drama on
about
this.
that topic, actually.
Yeah.
But lots of things about card choices, deck construction, the community generally, blah blah blah. There's things that to say, and this is a great venue to just get it off of our chest, and hopefully it's entertaining for you guys because we can each respond to everyone else's hot takes and call BS or whatnot. So. Yeah, so the format we're going to be following is that each person is going to read one of their own hot takes, and then we're going to rotate. So each person's going to read something from their hot takes. We're all going to respond, and then it's going to move on to the next person. They're going to read from their list. But not everyone has the same amount of hot takes in their list. So if one person runs out, they're just going to start reading from the next player. But we are going to say whose hot take it is, to make sure everyone's held accountable for their takes.
Absolutely.
And so that they can be prepared to defend them vehemently. So without further ado, let's get in. Reed, do you want to start things off?
Do I? All
Yes,
right,
you do.
I guess I am, since I'm
You're being
person here.
voluntold.
All right. This isn't actually that spicy of a take, but I'm still going to take a stance on it. Bad discount Thrasios commanders, i.e. just terrible infinite mana outlets, are still, for the most part, better than unique, quote-unquote, unique commanders in the same colors. For the most part.
Now, is that taking into consideration the fact that Thrasios has partner? Or
No, I'm not even talking about Thrasios,
Oh,
like
okay.
not even getting to partners, but I'm just
Like
talking
the
about
discount,
bad discount, like bad infinite mana outlets
Oh,
in
like
the command
like-
zone.
Kenrith,
still bad.
Tassiger.
how do you feel about Una?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like Una's still better than a lot of blue-black commanders,
Wow,
but
that's a hot take if I've ever heard one.
That actually is a hot take.
I mean, I said a lot of blue-black commanders. I didn't say all of them. I feel like Una's probably like the second best black commander, honestly.
I think kind of what the hot take ultimately is saying is that even if your activated ability is not, scry 1, put a land into play if it's a land, or draw a card, like Terras's ability is insane. Even if it is just, Kenrith's 3 and a blue, draw a card, or Tassiger's, mill 2, put an opponent chooses 1 to put back in your hand.
Yeah.
Those effects are so powerful as mana sinks that they outshine almost all of the cards in category unless they're doing something exceptional. So the best Simic commander, if with outside of Tassiger, would be like Leovold, if he was still legal, and that's
You
because
mean
his ability
Sultai.
is insane. Sorry,
Sultai.
Sultai. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your ability needs to be doing something exceptional in order for that. Like, I don't think Bug Sidisi comes that close to being as good as Tasker.
It's just like in any color combo, if you have an infinite mana outlet, like, it's just typically infinite mana combos are just like so much better than
Well, I
any
think part of the
other
reason
combos
is that
that
it's so-
require to assemble other things.
It's so easy to assemble infinite mana combos, mostly due to Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter now.
Yeah,
Right.
but just other stuff as well,
Yeah.
like any number of other 2-card infinite mana combos.
Sure. So that you would rather
And to be clear, I'm not saying that the discount Thrasios commanders are necessarily more interesting, because they're not, but like
Yeah,
they're
they're
almost
pretty
almost
generic.
like completely uniformly better than when you try to do interesting stuff with other commanders, because like unless you're like a Paradox Sisse or whatever, or you're doing like other stuff like that that's like actually legitimately broken, like it's a lot of the time it's just so much easier to just make infinite mana and win off of that instead.
Yeah, I mean, lots of decks are just doing that with extra steps, Get Rog basically does that with extra steps. Okay, I think that's a fairly mild. Let's okay. Also, I'm just gonna add. I'm adding this now. Everyone, after we're done talking about a hot take, everyone has to rate it out of 5 peppers. Okay.
5 peppers.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this take a 1 pepper.
Oh,
out
1
of 5.
pepper? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on board with Lyndon. I think this is, if I could give it 0 peppers, I would. But one pepper.
You can give it 0 peppers. You can give it 0.
Okay, then I'll give it 0 peppers.
Really? You're not gonna save that one for later? I feel like 0 peppers might be warranted.
I give it a pepper. I'm glad
ones that
somebody
are coming
said it, but just a 1 pepper.
Reed, do you want to rate your own take?
Oh yeah, no, this is like admittedly 1 pepper. I'm not
Okay.
here to be the spicy one.
Okay, Dave, you're up. You're up next.
Okay, so my hot take is that the Mystery Booster playtest cards that came from the most recent Pro Tour or Mythical Invitation, whatever they call it now, should be
Mythic
legal.
Championship.
Yeah, Mythical Champion
Yeah.
should be legal in CEDH.
I'm just gonna go right off the bat. This is a 5 pepper take.
Well, you gotta let him back it up first.
Yeah.
Gotta let him.
Well, I just think that given the card pool that we have access to, a lot of these cards are designed, first of all, with balance in mind. So these are playtest cards. They're not like uncards that are supposed to do something completely wacky or are supposed to sort of break the fourth wall of the game. And at the same time, I think that some of these are, well, the majority of them are simply not powerful enough to make it into CADH decks. And the ones that are, I think they're fine. I mean, there's a lot of lands off the top of my head that I could just see being played.
I'll say I think well they aren't like uncards in terms of so like I mean not all uncards break the fourth wall of the game,
for
or
sure,
like
for sure.
gotcha is something that would suck to have it in commander, like yeah, like using things like that. But there are some uncards, like what's the just like Dr. Julius Jumblemorph or something like that, and he's like all creature types, and Old Fogey is just like a big statted creature with a bunch of like meme keywords. Like those are fine. Those would be fine. I mean, Old Fogey would legitimately be playable in Sylvala. So.
That's a card I
Yeah,
haven't heard.
But the thing with the test cards is I think a lot of, or not a lot of them, there are some of them that do things that are kind of outside of the realm of being normal, or and kind of push the limits of like, yeah, this doesn't really feel like Magic anymore.
Okay.
Like land tokens.
Yeah.
That's pretty
That's great.
weird. That's pretty weird. So is
Isn't
that
something
one card
they
that
historically said they were never going to do because of the tracking issues too? I feel like I've heard that as an official statement for the
like
concept
there's
of
already
land tokens.
weird things, like the fact that you can animate a Mutavault and then copy it with Phantasmal Image, and then Phantasmal Image is a copy of Mutavault. Like that's already too
Well,
much.
That's
Yes,
a
but they
rules
were, like,
interaction.
I
I
think
know it's a rules interaction, but
I think-
that's
I think
already,
they were like there was like actually an official statement though at some point where like I get why this is I get why it's a playtest card, but I think like for specifically printing it, like I think they've specifically said they'll never print a card that makes land tokens.
well, these playtest cards were printed specifically for this set. That's something that not a lot of people realize is that
I get that. I'm just saying like it's like that's something that like they never intended to be played in like real games of Magic, real construct games of Magic.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also like, I think this card's called like the full tour or something like that.
Grand Tour.
Like bounces a card to your hand and then like you discard it and you put it in
Put it on top of your
zone,
library and then you put it into the
Yeah,
onto the
like
battlefield again.
It just goes everywhere. Goes in every zone and then it comes back into play. Like it's the most runaround way of flickering something ever. But
Dude, no. So what you do is you have Grand Tour on board, and then or Grand Tour in hand rather, and then you also have a Waste Knot and a Grafdigger's Cage. So what happens is you Grand Tour something, goes back to their hand, they discard it, you get a Waste Knot trigger, and they put it on top of their library, and they try to bring it out, but you have a Grafdigger's Cage in play.
wow.
So Reed, you're going to put that in your deck from now on, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
well, there we go.
100%.
Not a hot take at all then.
Okay, I suppose
See, no,
there's
see,
quite a
you
few
put, dude,
playtest
Opus
cards.
Thief. You put an Opus Thief. You're running the Waste Knot anyway.
Yeah.
Might be running the Grafdigger's Cage.
Exactly.
Then you just Grand Tour stuff.
Now, admittedly, I haven't looked at the full set of playtest cards, so I don't know. Like, I only saw some like what people were posting on Twitter, so I don't know the full breadth of how broken or weird these things can be. But some of the ones I've seen that are just like color pie breaks or Sliv Mizzet, like those are fine. Those would be fine. So I guess that's fine.
We can
I
leave it up to
suppose.
the listeners to tell us which playtest cards should not make it into CEDH.
I
Although
just
that's-
definitely don't want to see that art on people playing cards that look fake. It just opens up people's avenue to like tape or to like glue just their own weird paper test cards onto the front of Magic cards and have it look super genuine.
I mean,
like-
you could do one with death hive mind combos.
That's spicy.
What's one with death?
You lose the game.
Single black
Yeah.
instant, you lose the game.
Yep.
Oh my god.
You could
That's funny.
also I think this one is the one that would like not be okay is how to keep an innocent mage busy. I don't think that card's okay for any eternal
What does that
format.
card do?
It's hybrid blue red sorcery. Return it to your hand.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
But look, Paradox Engine is not a part of the format anymore, so this card doesn't even do anything.
Yep.
Yep.
Definitely doesn't do anything.
Nope.
Yeah, it definitely didn't do anything in Kaikar or
Nope. It's all good.
Zero things.
Okay, well, so what? How does everyone after this discussion, unless anyone has anything else to say, how do we rate this in terms of peppers?
Good 4.
That's a 4 pepper.
Yeah, I was initially on 5, but Dave convinced me. I'll bring it down to like 4.
I've just been perusing the list of cards while we've been speaking, and after looking at them, I'm down to a 4 from 5. There's obviously some spice.
Dave, your own rating.
Well, it's my hot take, so I think it's not that hot, or else I wouldn't. I think it's not very controversial of a statement. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So I have a bunch of hot takes. So I'm up next. I've got a bunch of hot takes, but like some of them are just really quick. I don't want to discuss too long. So I'm gonna just hit these first two kind of back to back.
Okay.
First one is Orin Frostfang and Thada Adel are cards that are overlooked. And I'm not saying that they're like, wow, they're really good cards or anything like that, but I think they should probably see play in at least one one CDH deck that isn't it can be fringe.
Can we just get the effects of those cards and like CMCs real quick?
Yeah, so Orin Frostfang is is for, I think it's 3 and 2 green, 5-drop, 2/6 with Death Touch. And then whenever a creature you control attacks, it gains Death Touch, and then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, draw a card. And then Thada Adel is for 1 and 2 blue. It's a 2/2 with Island Walk, and then whenever Thada Adel deals combat damage to an opponent, you can search their library for an artifact card, and you may cast that card until end of turn.
So I think, is it end of turn? I think it's, you just exile it as long as you have. Okay. But I think I would have agreed with this take if Paradox Engine was still legal.
This is kind of a carryover take. This is a take I've had since Paradox Engine was legal, but I do still think that Adel can do things like if it's just the Soul Ring Collector every turn, like that's not the worst. You can also, if you're an Isochron Scepter deck, you can just steal Isochron Scepter and combo off, or you can steal someone else's Isochron Scepter and then just stick like a value counterspell under it, which is something that's. I guess I'm going to smuggle in another hot take. I think people are not casting Isochron. I think people are too cautious with keeping their Isochron Scepters. Okay,
you know what? We're gonna take these one at a time, because the idea here is you get rebutted by people.
Sure. Okay, so then I'll just finish my statement on Thada and Frostfang. So these cards are kind of just like slow, mid-rangey, grindy value pieces, and they're typically overlooked because they're higher CMC. Most cards that draw a card that would be under Thada Adel's category are things like people run Mindblade Render and Grob now, which are the 2-drops. I think because you're drawing cards from your own deck, I think Thada Adel, even though it costs 1 more, still something to be considered. And Orin Frostfang, if you're in like a non-blue green stack or something like that where you've got lots of creatures in play, this is just something that you can drop as a bomb and gas up a lot, and it's not the worst. I'm not saying you need to run it in a bunch of decks, but I think some decks should be considering it and maybe running them.
So which decks, I'd like to know which decks should be running Orin Frostfang.
Okay, well, I run it in my Anafenza deck, but that deck is
all right.
Is a hot meme. So maybe like a Abzan, like you don't want it in a Tymna deck already because you've got that effect in your command zone. So non-Tymna creature based decks that are stacks focused. So something like a Rurik Thar maybe. Rurik Thar,
exactly Derevi.
Derevi, yeah. I mean that's two.
Derevi.
That's 2. Rurik Thar and Derevi. There we go.
And Rurik Thar is barely a deck.
Did Lyndon rebuttal his own points by qualifying?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure he did.
Right, okay.
What? I didn't rebuttal my own point. I said it should be seeing play in more decks than it is now, even if it's not a bunch. So if it sees play in exactly 1 more deck, that's my point.
Okay.
No, because it should be seeing play in more decks is plural, so it needs to be seeing play in at least 2.
Well, I'm pretty sure I gave myself the out to at least like, if just not a bunch, so like 1 or 2 is fine. But yeah, okay. So do you guys have rebuttals to Frostfang, Thada Adel?
I mean, not with the qualifier that it should only go into creature-based non-Tymna decks in small amounts of colors.
Yeah, if you were going to say it should be jammed in like every Tymna Thras deck, then yeah, there's a rebuttal. But if it's explicitly what you have just said, then sure.
I mean, what if you're like, would you run Grob in your Tymna deck, right? In your Cinnamon Toast mid-range?
Yep.
Oh, God, I can't even justify it there. Never mind.
No, you cannot.
I was like, maybe. Okay, what about Thada Adel?
I feel like Thada Adel is known tech, though, right?
I haven't seen it in like any of the database lists.
Well, not database, but it's like it's outdated tech, but I feel like it's a known quantity.
I mean, if your meta I don't know.
I seem to remember Tenrose having it in like Scion Reanimator as of like 2015.
Okay, well, things can be rediscovered. Okay, it might. Chains of Mephistopheles was known tech in Gitrog for a long time, but then it fell out of favor, and then I started pushing it that it should come back, and now it's like a standard card. I mean, it was not purely me. I mean, other people were pushing it as well. But
so
that is rediscovered tech. That is rediscovered tech.
Lyndon's just pushing for more cards to be included in decks so that he can be credited with discovering them.
No, I'm not taking credit for Chains of
He's sifting
Mephistopheles.
through like 3-year-old deck lists. He's like, all right, what cards are in here that people are playing anymore?
All
What
I'm trying
can
to
I
say
take
is
credit
Thada
for?
Adele collecting soul rings and finding Isochron scepters and Sensei's Divining Top. That's fine. That's a decent card.
I feel like that Adele could be used if you're specifically a very blue heavy meta and like lowish color blue heavy meta.
Yep.
Where people want to be doing all of that stuff, and then you're also in a Tymna deck and you want to be going slow enough where your Thada Adele is profiting like a soaring every turn, which you can then turn into cards for Thrasios. Like, I feel like the equivalent of what I'm looking for here is like, it seems like a bit of a slower Faber or Elder that can also just sometimes find a win if needed.
Yeah, I can maybe get behind that characterization.
But it costs blue, so it's rough.
That's rough.
Yeah, you need to be able to cast it reliably. I had it as tech for a while in like my Tasigur Tainted Scepter deck, just because you want to be generating mana advantage as a control deck, and then also helps you find Isochron Scepter and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's my take. If no one has anything else to add, give it a pepper rating.
I think Frostfang's about a 1 with the qualifier on it.
Sure.
Frostfang is definitely a 1 with a qualifier.
I give Frostfang a 2 pepper, even with the qualifier.
Okay, Thada Adele?
Thada Adele, I'm not.
Maybe I'll go up to a 2 on Thada.
Yeah, I'd probably go up to a 3 on Thada. That's a hot take.
Yeah, I don't think Thada Adele is that controversial of a card. So I'm gonna go with 2, maybe 1.
Okay, I'm fine with those ratings, like a 1 and a 2,
Yeah.
or that's fine. Okay, and then I said I'm gonna follow this up with another hot take because I've got a fat list. This one should be a bit quicker because there's less qualifiers. So Legacies, my take is Legacies Allure is bad, and you should feel bad for pushing on people who don't know better. And this is like a direct call out to read. Also the people who.
My response to this is that the fact that you're putting this into a hot take segment means that it's a hot take and an unpopular opinion that Legacies Allure is bad. So
I actually think this is a more popular opinion. I think this is the most popular opinion. That Legacies Allure is bad. I think maybe amongst the the CEDH elite in their ivory tower, the CEDH shadowy cabal, looking down on the plebs, think that they're so great with their Legacies Allure, but us, the people on the ground, we know that Legacies Allure is trash.
The people who play Gitrog and see it played against them and think that's not that great when it's specifically not Gitrog tech.
You know what, Reed? I'll give it to you. If Legacies Allure is great if you're jamming only against Urzas and Zur. Okay.
I mean, taking Tymnas, shutting off Hulk decks, stealing Thrasios so they don't have an infinite mana outlet.
I love going into the mid to late game and just top decking a Legacies Allure and then waiting 2 turns to take someone's Tymna. That feels really good.
I mean, I love having 2 seal effects in mono blue where you can't normally access your Gilded Drake easily.
Yeah, man. Why don't we just run Control Magic and Treachery?
How do you think it compares to Threads of Disloyalty?
I don't think the comparison is Threads of I think the actual comparison is Vidalcan Shackles.
Okay. I mean, you could have an argument for both, right?
Yeah,
Threads is a one-time effect, and Legacy Allure, it's not designed, or at least you're not putting it into your deck in hopes of stealing things that have greater than 2 power-ish, right?
Threads is only convert mana cost though.
Yeah. Like,
So like
Yeah,
you're not taking Timnas, you're not taking Zers, you're not taking
Urzas.
your Urza
Oh,
back
okay,
from
okay.
people,
Sure.
right? Like is typically what Legacy's Allure is for. And then also Threads isn't like an onboard hate piece. So the idea with Legacy's Allure in a lot of cases is like, so it makes it awkward for Hulk to combo a lot of the time if you just have it on board. Because like they try to go for it, and then you take a piece out of their pile, so they have to account for that. But like that's just, you don't have to expend it to do that. They just have to take that into consideration, and then they're just like, okay, I'm not going to combo this turn, and then you use it the next turn to take something when you have mana up or whatever. I think Threads is also just like a lot of mana for the effect.
Dude, I think is Legacy's Allure, like, it's fine to justify in those kind of niche scenarios, but it's just such a, people always ask, oh, why are you running Graph Digger's Cage in these lists? Well, Hulk and lots of the decks that utilize Graph Digger's Cage punishes a lot of decks in the meta generally, and the top tier decks. So people get away with putting that in their list because there's a lot of decks that it hits. I think the kinds of scenarios you're pushing, while generally those are fine. Legacy's Allure is great. They just don't constitute a large enough portion of the meta to really justify Legacy's Allure in kind of a standard base list. And putting it in the base list is kind of going to give people who just want to net deck or get into the format with Urza or something like that, going to give them the wrong idea, and they're just going to be like, why the hell am I running
But I mean,
this card?
it's like fairly applicable in Urza is the idea. Like in other lists, no, but like in Urza specifically, because like, so you already have an issue with your Urza getting Gilded Drake, so it gives you another answer to that. Like, it gives you another out to that. That's fairly convenient. And then also just
You already got a Gilded Drake. It's not any more findable than Gilded Drake.
tutorable. Just it doubles your chances of finding the effect.
Do what is tutorable? Shackles.
So you temporarily take it back, and somebody hits the shackles, then you lose your Urza again. I do think shackles is a real consideration, and it's probably real for that slot. I just personally like.
What else stops Gilded Drakes?
better.
Counterspells. Counterspells.
Uh-huh.
Just run another counterspell instead of Legacy's Allure.
You just slam that Urza down. You have like a dispel up, and then you get Gilded Drake, and you're like, wow, this is a great counterspell. I love being able to get my Urza
No,
back
then maybe
with
don't
this
slam
counterspell.
Urza down with only a Dispel up if you're worried about a Gilded Drake so much.
I don't think that's always an option. Are we really gonna keep going on this?
yeah, I think
I'm scared.
Legacy's
This,
Allure,
dude, I don't have exactly the counterspell or the mana drain for this. Just can't cast Urza, man. There's blue decks at the table. He's just gonna die, dude. I'm gonna get my Urza taken. I'm not gonna be able to deal with it. Just can't cast him.
But are you really feeling so much safer about it because you've got exactly one more card in your deck that you can find that's going to take Urza back in one turn? Doesn't even take it back immediately?
I feel like it helps with the situation where like you're pretty much always jamming the Urza anyway, unless you have a reason otherwise, and just having the extra effect that takes it back while also being a decent effect on its own is not a bad thing.
this discussion, I feel, has gotten far enough away from Legacy's Allure.
Hit.
We'll move on.
Do you guys not have anything to say about it, Zach, Dave?
So I play with someone who jams a lot of Urza, and he is.
We've shouted out Keegan before.
Yeah.
We've shouted out
Okay.
Okay.
So Keegan, pretty. He's played a lot of games with Urza. He is very much against Legacy's Allure. I'm not going to try to explain why he is, because when he gets a thing in his head, he's more likely to just tell you, I just hate it, and that's it. I think he would say, it pitches to Force of Will, and that is it. So
Also pitches the Force of Negation.
wow, it certainly does.
It does.
Big move.
I
big
don't
move.
think it's. I actually think it's pretty solid. I've actually come around on it. When I initially saw it, I thought how much more I'd like to do with blue. But depending on the meta that you're in, it certainly can mess up some Hulk lists, which we actually don't see much of in Kingston, so it's a little less relevant.
Dave, anything for you to add?
Nope.
Okay.
Yep.
Rate this take. How many peppers?
I think, so most of the discussion that we've had has been in the context of whether it goes into Urza or not. So I think in the context of whether or not it's good in Urza, I'd say it's a pretty mild take. I don't think the card is great in Urza, and I think if that's the take that we're rating, then 2 peppers.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think we're talking about this outside of Urza, so I'd say, like, mild take 2 to 3.
Yep, sure, I agree.
Okay. So let's move on. Zach, your hot take
All right,
here.
my hot take.
Also, so before you read, we're also just gonna try to. We've got a fair amount of hot takes, and we're kind of like already decently into the show, so we're gonna try to speed it up.
And we don't have to get to all of
Pepper
them.
ratings, yeah. We'll try to hit as many as we can. Yeah, we're not gonna try to get too bogged down in the minutia, going back and forth. Like Legacy of the Lore, we probably spent a bit too much time on that, and yeah. So we'll try to do it quickly. Pepper rating at the end. Don't need to justify too much. Just give a quick.
Sure.
Just rate it. And let's move on. Okay. So Zach, your first hot
Yeah,
take.
so I don't know how hot this is, but being on the a bunch of discords for CEDH, whether it be PlayEDH or the CEDH Nexus, our own QMTG, seeing the Facebook page, I think that it's inevitable that as CEDH grows, which I think it's currently growing quite a bit right now, there will be periods of absolute shit play, and people need to be more okay with that during these growing stages.
So what do you mean shit play?
I think so. There's been, for instance, CEDH Nexus has blown up in a big way recently, just with opening up the stores and having a bunch of new people come in, and that means you're getting a lot of people who are still learning the finer details of CEDH and who are trying their best. And in playing, you're just seeing, you see generally worse play. The threat assessment isn't quite there. And it's kind of resulted in some salty back and forth in various Discord channels.
There's some tension,
and I think it's okay to be annoyed that maybe this play kind of screwed me up and it shouldn't have happened. But I think if your goal is to grow the format, you need to be just more okay with shit plays.
Honestly, I think this is just really well stated, and I kind of completely agree with it.
Okay.
Zero take.
Same.
Okay, fair enough. I guess.
So Zach, what you're saying is people should be decent human beings when they interact with other people online.
I guess
Hard
that's kind of
disagree.
what it is, but it's
Hard to disagree.
Well,
I open up a lot of the CEDH communities recently, and I just see a lot of shit going down.
Reed, you play in you play on Nexus a bit, right? But you also play on
I play everywhere.
Trice. Yeah, you
I
play in some
to get
places that we
games
don't.
in.
Yeah. So do you have any like a differing perspective at all based off playing in different places, or?
I mean, I feel like whenever people set up a new way to play, there's always the train of thought of like, oh, this is gonna be better. Like we're gonna make sure that this is a better way of playing, whatever the format. Because I feel like there are reasonable issues that people have with playing games with people that aren't necessarily experienced in the format, especially because it's amplified in a not 1v1 format where you can be like put behind by somebody else's bad decision as opposed to 1v1 where they're only going to be messing up themselves. So I get where that thought comes from, but like honestly, if you're if you want a high quality of play right off the bat, typically that involves, and I've seen this so many times with so many different things, that like where like so many different people and so many different groups have like tried to make like splinter groups or like private play groups or whatever. The issue is that like whenever you expect there to be a really high level of play initially, but also get games, it just doesn't work because the community is never large enough to get all those games going. So you open it up and get more people in, and obviously it just ends up there are more like new people that play the game, and you obviously have to teach them how to play the format. And people get
Also,
really salty that they're not getting the quality of games they're getting, but you now actually have access to play more games now.
That when you do something like that, when you have like just a really small play group of people who are actually know how to play the format and blah blah, like you just create an echo chamber.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah. Like I'm not discussing like any of that stuff. I'm just like saying like there have definitely been multiple groups that have tried to increase the quality of play in some way or another, and typically there's a progression of small play group, but really high, but like fairly high quality of games. And then people want to actually be able to find games consistently, so you get more people in, and then you dilute the quality of games to a degree because there are just some people that are getting into the game that join.
The nice linear graph.
Yep.
All right, so less of a hot take, more of a take. I think we all generally
zero
agree.
peppers.
Yep, 0 peppers.
Okay, Reed, your next take.
It's mine? Oh, it is mine. Yeah. People routinely, 100% of the time, like almost always, overrate lower color commanders because of format variance and because of confirmation bias when they take games. I.e., people will be playing a lower color deck, and they'll see as successful either because the other people that they're playing against aren't playing the best of the best decks, so it seems a lot better, or even when they're playing against the best of the best decks, the format is very high variance and they can take more games in a smaller sample size than they would expect.
I'm going to say that I think this is kind of just, you can remove the term lower color commanders and this statement still holds true.
I find
people routinely overestimate power levels due to confirmation bias when they take games.
I find it's so more popular with lower color commanders typically, but yeah.
Is that not just your own personal bias against lower color commanders? Come on. No, I mean, this is actually going to relate to, when we get around to me, this kind of relates to my next take as well. But I mean, it's hard to separate your own bias against how you perceive power level and then kind of just shift it to other people saying that they've got the bias. Especially when it's something like they're just, when you're talking about variance and confirmation bias. Like,
well, I feel like
I don't know. It's so easy. It's so easy to flip that argument on its head. I mean, point it back at
just looking at you look at data from online play in fairly large metas, and typically like the lower color decks tend to not hold their own as well as somebody might expect when you actually start playing a lot of games and grinding a lot of games on them.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll say, like, I think people do overestimate the power of things like, it's hard to say because when you just look at the numbers for a lot of these decks, the numbers often speak for themselves, but then people will go to the whole defense of well, it's not enough numbers to generate good reliable statistical value, so blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, how reliable is that compared to your own personal opinion?
I'm also talking about the decks that do have the statistically relevant number of games where you can assemble a 95% confidence interval, and it like straight up lies outside of the base 25%.
I compiled numbers for Yisan not too long ago, and Yisan has something like a 10% win rate across like a significant number.
And I'm talking about like not targeting Yisan specifically, but like again, like
but
lower
that's
color
just
decks
a good
in general.
example.
But also definitely that deck. But yeah,
definitely Yisan. Like Frog tends to underperform compared to how people typically perceive it.
Sorry, what tends to underperform? Frog performs at 25%.
It performs exactly average. I feel like people tend to view it as a higher than 25% win rate. It also happens with
okay, well, this also depends on how you perceive.
Well. It happens with like like almost any.
Yeah. Well, so I agree that Frog performs. We're both in agreement that Frog performs at 25%, and that's across the biggest data set of any single. Right?
Across like when you put all data sets together, even.
Yeah. It's almost like 1,000 games or something crazy. But yeah, so like we're in agreement on the number.
Yeah.
But then we're, I think, in disagreement on the meaning of that number.
Sure.
Because I think like my definition for a kind of like a top tier CDH is that if you're playing Frog regularly into a bunch of pods against other top tier decks, you should be expected, if you're a top tier deck, you should be expected to pull, at least 25%, if not more. But then obviously you're creating a bit of a tier list, right? So things should be centered around 25%.
The issue is that the thing that I see that I will like repeat about this is like a lot of time in the same data sets, the higher color decks with a higher, like a statistically relevant number of games played on them tend to perform much higher than 25%.
like
But whatever.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
this could be its own show topic on just
Probably.
deck stats.
Yeah, I agree.
And
with actual
defining power levels
and numbers.
But yeah, I think there's more to say here, and I don't want to.
But the base
Yeah, without
take
getting
is
too
people
much
tend
into
to
it.
overrate low color decks because of the format that we play.
Yeah.
Yeah. For anyone who's interested, you can go onto the CEDH Discord server, Play EDH, CEDH Nexus. And I think those are the three big hubs for
That run Asperia,
games firing that run Asperia. And you can pull deck stats for specific decks. And those are some really interesting numbers to look at. So if you look at, we talked about tier lists, ages ago, and we had the discussion of like that popular tier list on Tapped Out, run by like Siggy, Shaper, and the Giggy Beast, I think.
Yeah.
And lots of decks that you see in there the numbers do not match up.
Well, and it's also
that's-
just because
that's
that
interesting.
tier list it's not a CDH resource.
Yeah, but I mean, well, it's curated by
It's-
people
it's
who
not
are
intended as a
figureheads in the
CDH resource.
CDH.
And it's not intended to represent those win rates.
People that forms people's perceptions of what tiers are in CDH.
In CDH? Okay, well,
Yeah.
the idea is that
People
it shouldn't, because there's a disclaimer on
push the meme
thing.
that Yisan is a tier 1 deck. If you look at numbers for Zur underperforms based on the Asperia data.
Well,
and that deck
that's just
is
people-
pushed as a tier 1 deck.
That's people like just not reading the description of the tier list then.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the tier
I'm
list-
sorry,
I
but
think we
there's a
can
disclaimer
kind of
in the-
defend.
yeah.
We can kind of push it off and say, oh well, it's not a CDH tier list, but largely people's perceptions tend to align with what that tier list says, whether or not it's informed by it or whether or not it's separate. People's perceptions are what they are, and people's perceptions do not align with what the numbers from Asperia give. So
What you're saying is that confirmation bias is a real thing.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
That's a hot
Zero
take.
to
five.
Real talk. Yeah.
okay, Peppers. I'm gonna give that a 3 to 5.
Really, I'm giving it a 1. Not a 1 pepper.
Yeah, I'm also down there with the one pepper. I think, like it's a well-known statistical effect, right? Confirmation bias. Like people will have one card or one thing that performed well for them in one situation, and then they'll remember that, or they'll sort of evaluate that more, or give more emphasis on that than at the other times where they did enjoy it, or it wasn't good, or where they
Yeah,
didn't do
maybe
it,
maybe I'm inflating the pepper count because of all the discussion around it. But I suppose the base take itself is
I think
actually
the base take is
pretty mild.
I'd give it a solid
Okay.
pepper. Just a solitary pepper.
Okay. Dave, your next hot take.
Okay, so my next hot take is that Necropotence is not an auto-include if your commander has black pips on it.
Again, Dave, take 5 out of 5 peppers right away.
Is that?
No, I'm just kidding.
This is not a hot take. All right, let me...
It's not, it's
No,
not
this
a
I do
super
think this is a hot take. I think this is pretty hot. Like, I don't think it's like the most hot take, but it is pretty
I
hot.
think it depends on who you're talking to. Talking to me, this is not.
I think if Dave
Yeah.
if Dave had said specifically people overrate the power level of Necropotence, that would have been a hotter take, but saying that it's not an auto include is a colder take in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's my take. So it's I think that
Yep.
a lot of deck lists basically right now, you'll start with Sol Ring and Mana Crypt and what have you, and then people will say, okay, well, if you're in black, well, you start with what? Demonic Tutor, Ramp Tutor, Imperial Seal, and Necropotence. I think those are
And Grim Tutor, of course.
no.
No.
And
there's a
Chaos
hot
Grasp
Well, see,
and
yeah.
Diabolic
I'm gonna
Tutor.
adding that to my list. Grim
Wait your
Tutor,
turn,
there we go.
Brendan. And I think that Necropotence does not start on that list. I think that 3 black mana is extremely restrictive, and I think that the people tend to, like Reed said, extremely overvalue the effect that it actually has. Right?
I think there are communities, online communities, that would disagree with you in a big way, in a very big way.
Yeah.
But I do think that there needs to be more thought put into Necropotence before it's jammed in a black deck. Like there's no doubt about it in my mind. There are many people who, similar to discussions about Ad Naus, where they drop a main phase Ad Naus, or they Necropotence, and it's like, well, they have the win now. Let's like that. That's the end of this game, and I don't think that's accurate. The number of times I've seen people post, "Oh, I necroed for I don't know. I jammed necro and went for 20, 25, and I didn't win next turn. What did I do wrong?" Well,
But is that Necro's fault, or is that people playing Necro?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I feel like that's just people not understanding how Necro can function.
It
as
could
not
be.
just sink your entire life into it to try to win.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like Plunge into Darkness, right? Like if someone's playing Plunge into, like the Double Titan Gitrog list runs Plunge into Darkness. If someone just plunges for 30 life, they're gonna lose every time, right? They're gonna hit their Titans and Dakmor, and they're gonna be like, oh, so well, I guess I lose now, right? Like these cards have optimal play ranges, and then outside of them, they become bad.
Even in the optimal, like I think without doubt, the most optional or the most optimal play pattern for Necropotence is you drop it and you're able to have Shimimir or Emergence Zone, and you win in your end step. That's obviously, I think, the best play case for, or the best argument for including in your deck, right? But I think outside of that, even if you're using it to sort of accrue value, it is a really awkward card to have because, first of all, it skips your draw step, right? So that I think that's something that should not be overlooked. And secondly, it makes it so that whenever you discard a card, you have to exile it. So again, both of these are not crippling drawbacks, but they do add up, right? And the third thing is that your deck needs to be built to be able to cast a consistent stream of spells, so that you're not overpaying life and then just discarding down to 7 cards in your end step anyways. And I think that if your deck has a lot of counter magic, or if it has a lot of reactive plays, then this card it's not like, I think you do have to think twice before you just jam it into your deck.
I agree that it's not, there are times when you wouldn't want to run it, especially with the color consideration. Like there's some decks that producing triple black is a big feat, especially when you're trying to hold up things like counter magic, right? Like if you're trying to fetch double blue, you're also gonna fetch like 2 like if you're in a 4-color deck, you're gonna fetch your Underground Sea and your Watery Grave. That just seems weird, and especially when you're trying to hit turn 1 dorks. Like Necropotence casting cost can become a bit awkward, but the effect I think is generally,
it's well worth the cost.
Generally it's well worth the cost. So I'm kind of like half in agreement with you here.
Okay.
I think that people probably stick it where it shouldn't go a bunch, but I don't think. Like I think it's worth building around it to include it in your decks.
I also think that the cases where it doesn't belong in the deck are very few and far between. So that it's almost like if you're trying, it's not close to 50-50. So if you're in a black deck, like I think if you just jam Necropotence, you're going to be right more often than you're wrong.
Peppers?
Okay, Peppers. I'm going to give this a 3 to 5 Peppers.
Yeah, I think this is like a reasonably hot take. I'd probably agree with 3.
I'm gonna go with 1. This is a 1.
This is a mild take.
I'm pretty on board with this. I think it depends a lot on damage is coming back, man. Beats are coming back.
I think I mostly agree with the general sentiment, but I don't agree with how far it takes it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I feel. Okay, my next hot take is there's only one top tier monocolored commander.
8.5. All right, tell us about 8.5. Tails.
And it is Wind City.
And of course, it's got to be my boy Godo Bandit War. No,
that's like off the scale. We would need a range beyond 5 to rate how hot that take is, Lyndon.
So as much as I love Shilling Godo, and I think that people underestimate the power level of Godo, I do think that there is only one top tier monocolored commander, and it's Urza. Although I guess there's like a second corollary hot take underneath this, which is that I think Godo is the second most powerful monocolored commander.
Which is
that's
the
a 5
much
out of 5
spicier
spicy
one.
take.
I think we can
we
can
just
focus
rate
on
that
that one.
one?
Let's focus on that
We
one.
weren't going to talk about Godo on this podcast anymore.
I made no such promises. Whatever you inferred from what I told you, that's your own.
So the hot
business.
take is that Godo is the second best monocolor commander.
Is that what we're going with right now?
That's a
No,
hot one.
we're not going with that.
Okay.
It's
So
because I think
Man.
the fact that when I say
Lyndon's,
there's only one
Lyndon's
top
pulling
tier
back.
monocolored
He's not going
commander,
for the points. Dude, you could
Well,
you could just reword this and
I
get
will make
full
both
points for
takes.
this one.
But what I'm saying is that I think that it's important to note that there are distinct. If you group all the monocolored commanders together and you created a tier list of monocolored commanders, like Urza sits atop that list by a fairly wide margin.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I was gonna
And
say,
like
I was
the
gonna
difference
say,
between Godo and the other decks, I think are much smaller. So like while I will make that statement, I think it's a much less like it's much more. I'd have to qualify that statement a bunch more. Like I think Godo's much better into this current meta. You know, Yisan is obviously, if you look at the stats, very poor, but under the right meta, that deck is a house. And like, you know, then there's Teferi and like there's so many ways to qualify it under that. But I just think generally Urza sits atop that tier list by a fairly wide margin.
this is
And I think most people, I think that the hot take here comes from the fact that I think people put a lot of other monocolored commanders.
this is
that
a
top
zero
tier.
pepper hot take, in my opinion.
So you're just saying you think
monocolored commanders are
monocolored
bad.
commanders are worse than people think they are.
yeah. I zero
If I sit
pepper
down-
take.
Yeah, I guess it is almost just like that. So fine, I'll add on
Literally
my Godo's the
rehashing my,
best.
literally just stealing my takes.
Yeah, fine. We'll give this a 0
If
to
I
5
sit down at a
hot
table
peppers.
that has
Or actually, we'll give it with the same that read.
I'll give this one a
So-
stolen out of 10
out of 10.
because
So you're-
Lyndon is a take
We'll
thief.
deduct 1 pepper point from because yours scored a 2 out of 5. We're gonna give mine a 1 out of 5 because we're just gonna deduct a pepper point for plagiarism. So.
God.
if I sit down at a table
Yeah.
with like Yisan or Godo, I'm happy. That's great.
Can you say that without like
I
laughing?
can't.
audibly?
He's laughing at the thought that you could ever possibly be in a pod with Godo and Yisan at the same
That's
time.
literally it. Yeah.
Zach can only dream
So-
of such a situation. Yeah.
So fine if we change this to Godo being the second best monocolored commander, that's
Dude,
give
you
that a
made your
pepper
bed. You
scale.
gotta lie at it.
Yeah.
That's a 5 pepper. That's a 5 pepper.
All right, Zach, what you got?
All right. Don't know how hot this is. These cards are in many, many lists, but Tarnished Citadel, Forbidden Orchard, and Gemstone Caverns should not be in your deck. They just shouldn't. I don't think they offer anything more than other, I guess, dual lands. To bolt yourself for a color is insane. To give someone blockers or swingers with Forbidden Orchard is less insane, but still reasonably insane. And Gemstone Caverns taps for generic mana is essentially what it comes down to.
I'm generally I think Gemstone Caverns probably overrun unless you're in a very specific deck where you're trying to meet like turbo things. Having a Gemstone Caverns is just like a massive downside. So low color decks can take advantage of it, like Gitrog, sure. Mono green commanders where you're trying to cast your commander on turn 2. That just helps do that. So
mono
fine.
green commanders, sorry.
Yeah, it's the Selvala.
Commanders.
Turn.
Didn't we just talk about this?
I'm saying when you're low color commanders where you're trying to hit your commander on a specific turn or you're trying to turbo things out, fine. But I think Gemstone Caverns probably overplayed and people like you should not be running that in Thrasios Tymna. Like probably even Zur is pushing it. But
I think
sure, I'll agree with that. Tarnished Citadel, I'll also agree, but Forbidden Orchard, that's wrong, man.
That's wrong.
This card is good.
I think
right.
I think the people that discount Tarnished Citadel have never played in a very color heavy deck that doesn't particularly need its life total. Because
okay, well that's sure fair.
you just like there are a lot of decks where like I agree that you should never play in an Adnaz deck. Agreed. Put a
Okay.
stamp on that, send it off.
Okay.
I think
So you've just reduced the amount of decks that Tarnished Citadel should be run into like 1.
Because for the record, I believe Tarnished Citadel is included in like, for instance, I think it's in the base like CST list at this point, right?
Yeah, I also
least it
see
was.
it in a lot of 4-color decks. I think I see it in the primers for the vast majority of the 4-color decks. And
And
also
I
in
just
the,
don't think it has
also in
the
stuff
space
like
there.
Majula.
I think
Okay. Reed, you're
I think it's probably fine in Agila. I don't think Tarnished Citadel is in fact in the CST base list.
okay. So I think the Gemstone Caverns Tarnished Citadel are like 1 pepper takes. Forbidden Orchard, though, I think this is like a 4 pepper take. Forbidden Orchard is good for creating Tymna blockers for other people, so it doesn't make it free. If someone wants to swing in to a cast player who hasn't cast yet, and you can just give them a Tymna blocker.
I guess
That's great.
I should have kind of explained more. I am in a big way coming at this from playing stock PSD CST list for quite a while, and the fact that these cards are included and it doesn't make much sense to me. I do agree it can be spicy for giving someone a blocker with there's a Tymna going at them or something like that, but to be, for instance, in a deck, a Tymna Thrasios deck, and run Forbidden Orchard, I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think you're that starved for colors that you need to start taking away potential draws to get them.
Yeah, if you reduce the take to just Thrasios Tymna, that's still a 3 pepper take in my opinion.
Yeah. Wow.
Just for
I
the
think there's
Forbidden
lots
Orchard.
of decks where you can just for
Gemstone
free
Cavern.
give the Forbidden Orchard to.
And Gemstone Caverns is probably a spicier take for me, but yeah.
I would say
Really?
I think
Gemstone
in specifically.
Caverns.
I
you can
like
think about it this
Gemstone
way.
Caverns a lot when you want to accelerate stuff out.
Yeah.
It's basically another like Chromox.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
Yeah, it's definitely,
definitely not
Chromox.
Chromox.
Okay, so people's pepper rating.
I'd say
I like
a 1 or 2 on all of them, or as a whole, like one pepper.
I'll max it out at like 3.
Okay.
Give it like 2 to 3 ish.
Yeah, I was gonna go kind of like 1, 2, 3 off the bat, off the basis of each of these. So average it to 2. So we'll give this a 2 out of 5 peppers total.
Okey-dokey.
Okay, Reed, you are out of hot takes.
Am I? Okay, can I come up with one so I don't have to read somebody else's bad hot take? Somebody else's terrible, just absolute garbage take.
There's a bunch of hot takes under my section. So if you want to, those are free available if you want to read
I
some.
think
more.
my
you
hot
know what?
takes are also not very controversial. But
You know
because
what?
they're my hot takes.
Are you kidding, Dave? You're winning. You're winning by a significant margin. The playtest card's got a 4 to 5 peppers, so yeah, you're doing decent.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna.
Okay, Reed. So if you don't have one right now, pick from one of mine.
I do. I think that for as much as people say that they don't want to keep playing against Thrasios and Tymna or established meta decks, they're like basically anybody, like they're like a vast majority of the people that complain about a homogeneous meta are not doing anything to solve it. People are so content to complain about Thrasios and Tymna and then continue jamming games with whatever fucking bad deck they wanted to try to make work and it isn't, or just jam games with established decks that aren't Thrasios and Tymna.
Yeah.
Wait, what? So you're saying that they're doing nothing about it by not playing Thrasios and Tymna?
What? No, I'm talking about like people complain about established decks and a stagnant meta, and then they continue to just play the exact same deck over and over and over and over again and never try to innovate anything.
Wait, so what's the hot take? Is it on Thrasios and Tymna, or is it on people?
I'm talking about like just
playing-
established meta. Thrasios and Tymna was the example.
Okay, so restate that. So in an established meta, people complain about stagnation.
Currently, people complain about stagnation in the meta and how there aren't being like new decks developed, or there aren't being new decks like introduced to the meta game, and yet continuously do not do anything to help introduce new decks into the meta game.
Okay, I'm gonna rate this a 5 out of 5 because I think this is just like a wrong characterization of how people complain.
Whoa.
Like,
Wait, I want to hear
who's complaining. Who's complaining about the stagnation of the meta because there's no new decks when basically every single available CDH deck that's like close to viable has been explored in terms of brewing.
Everybody complains about Tymna Thrasios.
No, but we're not talking about Tymna Thrasios because he said it's just about meta stagnation. So he's saying that, people will complain about meta stagnation, no new decks, but then they'll just jam, the same Gitrog deck or Zerd deck or something, right?
Or Kest deck or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I just don't think people are doing that. I think people complain about Thrasios and Tymna a lot, but I just don't think the there's a lot of, meta stagnation when it's generally understood that there's a vast majority of, the only time I kind of see people complain is like, and it's a bit weird, is that they'll say like, oh, we only want to play against meta decks. And then they complain when, they see the same decks over and over again. That's the only sort of hypocrisy I see, but I don't really see that much hypocrisy.
That's an insane person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people just complaining about it. So.
I think part of the reason behind that, or if you were to analyze why that's the case, is that people are extremely lazy, right? And putting 99 cards together into a pile is not an easy task. Like, I've thought about switching decks or building new decks, and then a lot of times I'm just like, I could do that, or I could just play this pile that is already assembled and ready for me right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just... part of it is just people are extremely lazy, and putting 99 cards together into one pile is not easy. Which
I accept that people are lazy, but there's a level of non-self-awareness when that happens. I think that...
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this went from a 5 out of 5 to when you clarified it to like 0 out of 5.
0 out of 5.
What? All right.
I just don't think this is a hot take. I think this is like, people are hypocrites sometimes.
People are hypocrites a lot of the time on this specific topic. People just don't put effort into brewing and then continue to complain about meta stagnation.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly hot of a take. I'd say, again, 1 or maybe 2 peppers.
Zach?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2. That's 2 pepper.
Okay, so that's call it a 1 on 5.
What?
And what?
I got a 2.
Dave said 1 or 2. Right. Zach said 2. I said 0. Okay, Dave, your take.
Okay, my next take is that.
Also, just bundle these together because they're very similar.
So both of these relate to creatures,
and
I think first of all that if your deck has blue, you should be running Phantasmal Image, and that second, that the Woodland Bellower package is great and should be in consideration for a lot of creature-heavy CEDH decks.
Okay, so I like the Phantasmal Image. Like, that's fine. Like, it's instead of we want to go, if we want to harken back to the Urza's Legacies Allure Gilded Drake debate, Phantasmal Image, you can just Phantasmal Image the Gilded Drake and get your Urza back. So I like that. But then Phantasmal Image also allows you to do stuff like copy Tymna, copy Urza, copy Zur, copy Gitrog, copy a bunch of high value targets without having to spend as much mana. So you know what? I actually like the Phantasmal Image take. But I will agree that it's a spicy take. It's a spicy take for sure. I mean, I don't think many people would agree with that. So, you know what? Go on that. But this other take, man, as much as I love, like when I'm building a green mid-power deck, so these are some of the first cards I put in my deck. But that's mid-power, a 6-mana 6/5 that is either an Ewit or a Rec Sage.
It can't even get Sylvala or Yisan out of the deck, so you're stuck with getting.
Yeah. It can get Fate-Crown Elder. That's the newest hot addition.
Oh, Fabro Elder.
Fabro Elder.
I love 6-mana Fabro Elder. By the way, that's just
6-mana Fabro Elder with a free 6/5. Think about it that way.
The Phantasmal Image is a 4 pepper. The Woodland Bellower. So
are you?
6.
Is the idea here that you're hard casting a Woodland Bellower?
You can.
No.
So what's the base case with the Woodland Bellower? Are you hard casting it to go get a thing?
So I think a lot of times you're able to.
Can I describe it for you, Dave? I want to. This is me putting myself into Dave's mind. Okay. So, of course, the most value loop you can do is you can turn your Dork with a natural order into a 6/5 and get an Ewit that also regrows your natural order so that you can then do that again. This entire package is built around that idea that you're just going to keep recurring this natural order or getting insane value from it. And Woodland Bellower, you can do like copy loops with Phantasmal Image. If you've got that, you copy your Woodland Bellower, then you get something else. It's just like a utility package built around the idea of natural order.
So you're not your base plan isn't hard casting the Bellower, it's hard casting in natural order.
I mean, hard casting Bellower is acceptable. I think it's...
But it's not what you're aiming for with this package.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't say I would aggressively tutor for natural order just to get Woodland Bellower. I just think that going back to some of the notes or some of the points made about slowing down the meta and then sort of how far can you push these sort of mid-game value cards. It's sort of tying back to that idea, right?
Okay, I think everyone kind of gets this, right? Like we can just give this a pepper rating right now.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Max is-
Woodland Bellower,
loses to Grafdigger's
6
Cage.
Out of 5.
This is a 5 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
Zach?
the spiciest. All this is spice.
Oh,
The fact that your value piece loses to Grafdigger's Cage, Containment Priest, and also like Torpor Orb, so Hushbringer turns it off. And then if you're cheating it into play, you could also just be cheating like a Beta Progress or something else into play.
Yeah.
Or like a
It's the fact
Vornclex
that-
into play instead.
The fact that the value package here is centered around the fact that you just get a bonus 6/5 for an out of cost effect.
No, you're
Right, like,
paying
E-win-
you're turning your natural order into 8 mana, make a 6/5 and do a natural order effect.
but
No, but I'm saying like if you're just natural ordering, so you natural order a dork, you're like, oh, I want a Rex Sage effect. So then you just get a free 6/5 and a Rex Sage.
Wait, but you're
but natural order is already
for a
4
Rex
CMC.
Sage?
I legit saw Dave do this like the other day. So
Was that just
I
because that
know
was
this
his
is what it's
best
built around.
his best natural order target though? Like he just didn't have anything else to natural order for?
well, the problem is that all
yes,
of the other targets,
Bellower is the top of
all
his
of the
deck.
other
I'm pretty
targets
sure.
are a bit too large to be hard cast. Right? I think Bellower strikes that sweet spot where 6 mana is achievable, especially when you have a bunch
But
of
Beta
free-
Progress already strikes that. And it
Yeah.
does the Rex Sage effect but better.
But then you get a free 6/5,
Yeah, but
and then also a 2/1.
but Beta Progress gives you like a free 14/14
Well, what if I
and
have artifacts
clears
I don't want to blow
multiple
for my own?
things. So you're playing this mythical rock deck that also wants to natural order into Woodland Bellower.
baby, yes. Give me all of that. That's what I love about CEDH.
I'm gonna give this a 69,420 out of 5.
Yeah, this is spicy. This is hot.
Yeah, and then I'll give the Phantasmal Image a 4 out of 5 peppers. Does anyone want to disagree with that?
And on that note,
No, I'm
God,
Yeah, that's
can we beat that? I don't think we can beat that take.
absolutely not.
No, that's like the spiciest take. I'm gonna look. Did all my takes get deleted?
That's fine.
Read.
That wasn't actually me.
I
It
wasn't. I swear
legitimately
to
was
God.
not.
Damn it. At least if we want to go back to this topic, I wanted to have my list of hot takes.
Oh well, we'll figure it out.
Okay, are we're gonna call this? We're gonna call this to
Yeah,
a close
I think
then.
so.
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to beat that.
Oh, there's no.
that last
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
So, if you guys want to hear an episode with more spicy hot takes, I'm sure Matt and Morgan will have some as well, and we'd love to have for the next time we do the hot takes episode. We'd like to hear some of your hot takes as well. So definitely, I already preemptively set up a listener hot takes public channel. So feel free to leave your hot takes in there, and we'll give those a read on the air and discuss them. But so before we call the episode to a close, we've got a gut check segment.
Yeah, check.
Gut check.
And this is going to be from here, gut check. There we go. I did it. But this is a gut check that's going to be brought to us by our guests, or one of them. So do you guys want to hit us with that gut check?
Okay, so the gut check I had in mind for today's show is how much mana would you be willing to pay at sorcery speed, where you're not guaranteed to win the game on your turn, basically. So like a numerical value, and then kind of the effect that you have in mind for it.
Yeah, okay. I've got mine.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, Zach.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so I'll start off first. Mine is 6, and it's not because I want to be hard casting Woodland Bellower into a Rex Sage. Surprisingly enough, my what I was thinking is Recurring Insight. I think that card is definitely good enough to see play in mono blue decks.
That should have been a hot take. Holy Christ!
What? That card already sees play in some mono blue decks.
Yeah, mono blue does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 6 mana draw, like 12 cards sometimes, that's something I'll pay for. Pay 6 mana for.
Yep.
I've been known to pay 5 mana for Seedborn Muse on occasion. So probably that. Although, I mean, do you consider hard casting a Protean Hulk and then hard casting a Sack Element after that to be part of this? Because you always just get swords out of the games. Yeah, but you can get swords. But I guess if it's not deterministic, if you don't get interacted with, yeah, I'd probably max out at 5 for Seedborn Muse most of the time. In CDH in general.
Yeah.
Zach?
Yeah, I was kind of along the lines of a Seedborn Muse. I would pay up to like 7 for a Paradox Engine effect. That would be my take. I think at sorcery speed.
And Dave, yours?
Well, I was originally going to say 6 for exactly Woodland Bellower. But
Wow.
I think
commit.
Yeah. You know what? 6 for Woodland Bellower or Consecrated Sphinx. There we go.
Oh, Sea Sphinx is good, yeah. That's really the Sea Sphinx is pretty similar to Recurring Insight, which I think that's what makes sense to me. And before we our very last segment, that's going to be listener questions. From our newest patron, we actually got 3 Patreon questions. 2 of them we can answer pretty quickly, and then we've got one more that's a bit more involved. So we'll go ahead and do that. But yeah, if you want to get your listener questions answered before anyone else, become a patron, and we give priority to patron questions. All right. So first question, and again, this is from Drew Nasty. This is why isn't Desecrated Tomb a better card?
I mean, we've all asked ourselves that at one point or another.
Yeah.
I always find myself coming back to Desecrated Tomb and just being like, God, why couldn't this just be better? Why couldn't I just do more things with this card?
Would we say in a similar vein, that question could be rephrased as, why doesn't Gitrog Monster have a blue pip on the card somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The answer being because it isn't and because it doesn't. Like that's what the card is. And unfortunately, maybe
because R&D hates us.
Somehow they make some card that combos exactly with Desecrated Tomb, and they make it better. And the reason it's not good is because they don't have that exact card printed yet. But that can be said for a lot of cards. So, yeah. The next quick question is, why is the best Derevi deck Najeela? And I guess the question is sort of implying that the best Derevi deck isn't Derevi.
Ask Pongo about that one.
Yeah, the reason why the best Derevi deck is Najeela is because Derevi is a really good combo piece, but unfortunately in Bant there's just not a whole lot to take advantage of Derevi.
Oh, actually, sorry, this is the better answer because we don't have Time Vault in the format.
Yeah, that is actually the answer. Yeah.
Right. Next one.
Yeah, in a no ban list format, Derevi becomes basically
one of the top 2 decks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and the more involved question is, how strong do you think Kenrith will ultimately become? He looks like a good toolbox with infinite mana outlet, but TNT seems to be more streamlined. Do you think he'll be better as an all-in layered combo or more as a tempo control dramatic scepter build?
So I've been shilling my viewpoint on this for ages now. because I think it's correct, as we all do, right? We all think our own opinions are
Yeah.
correct,
Yeah.
but
That's good.
Of course.
yeah, it's good place to be, right? I do think that like Kenrith ultimately is going to just become it's basically because Thrasios and Tymna are just better as commanders for like general value and like the fail case. I honestly just think Kenrith is like, he's fine to cast as a commander, but I think to justify him over Thrasios Tymna, you have to either be doing something that requires, like absolutely requires that you have both red and white, or you have to be doing something so all in that your commanders don't matter anyway.
As
I
soon
agree
as
with that.
as soon as someone playing partners stomps Sheldon and partners are banned, Kenrith will be
Everybody just moves to Kenrith.
will be
Yeah.
insane.
I'm in almost complete agreement with Zach here, and that like Kenrith becomes good when partners
Yeah,
get banned. I
it's just like,
suppose.
why would you choose to have 8 cards
just-
in your opening hand when you can have
he's the
9
best
cards?
analog right now,
the problem
right?
is
Yeah.
I also kind of think that Kenrith, while he just becomes the best generic 5-color infinite mana outlet card, right? I mean, Najeela is still the better deck, doing its own thing in my opinion. I just don't even know if Kenrith is still the best. Let's assume that they banned Thrasios, right? So you're just looking at infinite mana outlet decks. I don't even think Kenrith necessarily becomes the de facto winner on that front. Like Tasigur, still being able to cast for cheap, block like value planeswalkers, and do things like casting a 5-mana commander in Kenrith, and then having to hold up its ability, for like 4 mana draw a card. That's pretty weak, man.
Okay, what
Yeah.
about this as a consideration? How about the fact that Kenrith does not require any other cards in your 99 to be a win condition?
That's a great one.
Right, as in like you can literally just play all your dorks,
Just
pump them
pump
up, give them
yeah.
haste, and then swing it.
Or you can literally just point infinite draw effects at everybody else on the table, right?
Either of those. Yeah, either of those.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That's definitely pretty sweet. Yeah, although I don't think that alone is necessarily enough to make it, like I guess you just play it as a 5-color good stuff deck, which is certainly fine, but I just don't think that having your commander almost be a blank because it's just too expensive to get value from it is necessarily worth that advantage.
I don't think it's completely
like there's lots
true.
of cards that can just win the game in Tasigur that are still
People
playable,
definitely
like Winds of
definitely
Rebuke,
locked
etc.
in on some strategies to casting 5-mana commanders, but I do think that the fact that it's just less efficient than some existing.
It's not just a 5-mana commander. Like if it was 5 mana and it had like Gitrog's ability, obviously that'd be insane. Right?
No, but like people
it's
are still like
5-color.
locked into like casting Momir Vig or whatever, right?
But it's my
yes.
point is that it's it's an initial 5-mana hump to get the commander into play, and then he also has this additional cost to get the
To do
value
things,
from it.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not just that he costs 5 mana; it's that he costs 5 mana and his ability costs 4 to activate repeatedly.
Yep.
So
It kind of reminds me of when I used to play Una a little bit. I think it's similar-ish, but
yeah. Okay. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. If you guys would like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns, you can contact us on Twitter at Into the North Pod, via our email, intothenorthpodcast@gmail.com, or on our Discord server, the invite link for which can be found in the description for this episode. An extra special thanks to all of our patrons who help cover the expenses for our show and allow us to work towards improving the quality of the podcast. If you too would like to become a Patreon, we are at patreon.com/intothenorthpodcast. Thanks to our special guests, Dave and Zach, for gracing us with their presence. Hope they enjoyed it as much as I did. And thank you as always to the band Vox Cadre for our lovely podcast music, to Nate Slover for our equally lovely podcast logo, and to our long-suffering podcast editor, Roadkill. Next episode will be out in 2 weeks. Until then, see ya.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
bye-bye.